Hi and welcome to the channel, Budget Audio Review and Upgrades. Today I'll be talking about these old analog FM, AM tuners. Are they worth buying still these days? Is it a waste or whatever, or should you just go and buy a DAB one? I mean, how popular are they? All that kind of stuff, just a general chit chat really. The reason is I've got a couple of these, I'm going to put them away now. They've been sitting on the side and I thought, can I make another video that I haven't kind of already covered? I don't want to keep repeating myself, and I thought there's still a couple of little bits I haven't mentioned about these really that I could do. Then I can pack them up and put them away for a few years, I think, maybe as an investment. I think they're going to creep back up a little bit. They're not going to jump up fortunes, but they may just creep up a little bit, the pair of them. They're never going to be worth fortunes, and I think they're not the right receiver. The one, these Marantz ones with the oscilloscope built in seems to be like all the rage. But these are towards the bottom of their end at the time. This is the 2050. The 2020 was the lowest. Then the 2050. Then the 2100 or 2100. Sorry, 2100. However you want to say it. Bit of a generation thing. I buy bits and pieces off of different people. I bumped into a car dealer that was dealing in all these old-fashioned cars. I don't know nothing about cars. You know that straight away as I'm talking about it. And he said it's a generation thing. Like people in there, when they was 20 and that liked this car and they couldn't afford it, they get to about 55, 60. They got some spare money, so they go out and buy it. So it kind of like, he said, like for 5 or 10 years that car will be really popular, and all of a sudden it'll start falling off a cliff where no one's really interested in that car because that bracket keeps on moving up. So it'd be, rather than cars in the 50s, it'd be cars in the 60s that starts to creep up in value, and the 50s will drop down, and so forth. And it'd be the 70s and the 60s until some of these cars disappear and be worth next to nothing all of a sudden because no one's really interested. I mean, nothing's really worth anything unless it's really, really rare, or so enough people interested in it to bid against each other for the demand is more than the actual supply, so to speak. So I can see that being the case with these as well, like these especially not so much amplifiers. I think amplifiers are always going to be around, as long as they're working and that way you can get them repaired. They're always going to be around. But receivers, stroke maybe, maybe receivers because they've got amp built in, but tuners, because that's all they do is receive on the old analog frequencies. And talking about that, I've only had a quick look on it now. I haven't really gone into it that much detail. I suppose I could have done, but I didn't. I mean, the UK, if you're in the UK, they've extended it now. They're going to cut off in 2032. I mean, it's not guaranteed it's going to cut off in 2032. So if you went and bought one of these today, you're going to have another 12 years service out of it, you know what I mean? So that's one good thing. So you've got 12 years out of it, which is a fair amount of time. Different countries are different. I did have a look at Norway there. They seem to cut off in 2017, so it's 3 years ago. So you've had one of these in Norway. It'd be now a little ornament now. But saying that, the local stations are still transmitting until 2027 in Norway. So yeah, probably still pick up a few bits and pieces. As far as I could make out, in the it wasn't a great deal of information about it, but in the USA and Canada, they still use this analog, but they've also got digital running on that frequency as well, a digital signal on that frequency, right bang, basically on the same carrier. So it's, you can buy a receiver that does both, so you can pick up the AM, like normal analog, shall I say, and the digital on the same frequency, or if you've got an old receiver, you can still pick up the old analog signal. I mean, I don't know how long that's going to go on for. We're going to transmit both, but there you go. So yeah, so if you're going to buy one of these or thinking about buying one of these, check in your country how long how much more use you're going to get out of it. Don't go and buy it tomorrow and it's going to run out next year, and then you've only got a year's use out of it. Okay, well, why would you want to buy one of these? This is probably the topic, and also a little bit about the bulbs in these as well. We'll cover, and a little bit about Marantz, because this is the one I've got here. But it kind of generalises in most of them, I would have said. Why would you buy one of these? I remember years ago, in the late 70s, 80s, you would have had your HiFi indoors all set up, and like in the UK, it would have been different in America and Canada and places like all over the world or whatever. But it would have been a chance for you to hear the top 40 records that you would only hear once a week. That come on every week over here in the UK. The top 40 records on, like, it'd be Capital Radio, one of the stations. They play the top 40, and you have your cassette deck ready, because you haven't bought these records. You've only bought one or two maybe, and you haven't heard some of them. You have your cassette deck ready on play and pause, and as soon as it says, here we go, here's today's chart show or whatever, you press the pause button to make it start working, and you'll take that. So once it's finished, after about 2 hours, you could play it back and listen to all the songs, and you've got them all. It ain't cost you nothing and all that. I mean, there's a big thing about it, like over is it legal, is it not legal? But I mean, they couldn't put everyone in prison, the whole country would be in prison, so it was kind of like just, you know, it's kind of borderline, and they kind of like let you get away with it, so to speak. But yeah, that would have been years ago. You would have listened to it for that, and years ago you didn't have the internet and all that, and obviously, and if you was into sport, you may be able to listen to your local team or a team playing on the radio. You better even a football match or anything really sport-wise, or get your sport results, stuff like that. I remember years ago. My old man used to have a bet and all that, like, you know what I mean, and get, rather than going around the local bet, you get all the sports results that come up, the horse racing, all different things, all sports and all that would be come up there during the news and whatever, towards the end of the news, that'd be a bulletin, like, so to speak. So, you know, it's quite a lot of use. Years ago, you'd have had this on a lot. Like I say, you've been listening to records you haven't heard before and all that. Because you know the records weren't out there so much, like, you know, as they are these days on the internet and all that. So yeah, you know, MTV and all that kind of stuff. None of that stuff was about. So the radio would have been a, you know, a real good source for all that. So nowadays, what would you use it for nowadays? Now, fine, I do use the radio quite a bit. It's surprising, even though, you know, sometimes I ain't got it in the car. You may be driving in the car and you've got the radio on, and you think you get home, you've heard enough of the radio, you've heard all the news and the records you haven't heard, and so forth and all that. So you come home and you just want to relax, watch a bit of TV or that, or if you may want to stick one of your albums on or whatever and sit down and relax. But when you get up in the morning, like so late evening, sometimes, you know, you may just want to come in and just do something on your computer or something. You may just want to have a little bit in the background. Especially in the morning, I think it works out. You get up, you haven't really got time to sort through record collections and all that, and it's so convenient, you know, forget the TV, you're wandering around the house anyway, you just press the radio, it's on, turn on, you've got the latest news, the latest weather, all that as you're walking around doing things, you know what I mean? So yeah, and obviously you're hearing some records you may not have heard. The only thing today, with today's radio, I think, I don't think it was so much years ago, but today they keep playing the same, you know, you'll be stuck on a radio station and it'll play the same records. And it really would be not a lot. There'd be just 20 records. It seems that way anyway. And they continuously play them over the months. And even these stations that say, well, you ring in for a request. You ring in for a request, can you play me a record? And well, lo and behold, it's one of them 20 they've been playing for the last month. So it's quite repetitive these days. So it's a negative there. But it's still got its uses, like I say. It's nice just to come in and press it on. Or like I say, as you get up in the morning, press it on. You haven't got to muck about finding a CD you want to play or getting your record player and moving the thing over and all that, and when you go out, just turn it off and you can forget all about it. So it's quick and easy, and like I say, you can pick up a few different records, and especially now I've been putting this video together and doing a little research on the internet. Not that it looks like I've done a lot, but I have done a little bit, and other bits and pieces I do on the internet. I've been buying a few presents as Christmas is coming up and whatever, but hence the jumper, got the jumper on, and that's what I've been hearing, that's what I've got the jumper on as well. I've been hearing a lot of Christmas tunes, so this time of the year, you know, you wouldn't go out and maybe buy a Christmas record or whatever. It's just getting you in the mood of things. So a lot of Christmas songs are coming on the radio and that. So, you know, it's got its pros, its cons, I suppose. So, but today I still think, you know, it's still a good little investment considering what you're going to pay. You're not going to pay any fortune for these. If I was getting a tuner, I'd honestly recommend second hand. Not a lot's going to go wrong with these. Buy second hand because the new prices. I've been looking up a few new DAB just tuners, just a tune all by itself. And there's quite a few makes I've never even heard of, like low budget makes, and they're in the £100 bracket, you know what I mean, or $100 or whatever. So you're talking about a minimum of £100, like for a cheap no make one, so to speak. When you start talking about makes, all of a sudden, like for a DAB, you're talking about £200-300, $200-300. So the prices is quite high. And I looked up a few that are £300 or £300 new, say $300 and that. And second hand, as long as you know they're going to be in mint condition kind of thing, they ain't got scratches all over them, all that, you know, I always don't want that in the house maybe. But second hand, that £300 one, you get it for £120-140, so less than half price, and most cases a third of the price. So definitely recommend, if you're going to go and get you know, a DAB radio, to get a second hand one. Obviously this is a bit different, still second hand, but these are not new, so I can't compare a new price for something they stopped making 40 years ago. But for this particular model, this is a Marantz 2050, this goes for about 50 quid, I would have said. You may be lucky 30 or 40 pounds, depending on condition and everything, and it could go up to 80 quid or something like that. But for 50 quid, I think you're getting a good deal there. You're getting a good, it's a nice looking machine, nice looking unit, not a machine, but a nice looking unit. You know, as long as it obviously don't match this amp, it goes with your system. If you've got a silver like amp or silver system, that's going to match nicely. You may not worry too much about matching, I don't know. But obviously they do black ones and different colour ones, well, black and silver basically, but you know, different kind of looking ones and whatever that may match your system. So yeah, have a look round. Like I say, I think, second-hand ones definitely, for the money you pay, not a fortune. Obviously, if you've already got a receiver, then it's pretty pointless. But if you've just got an amp, just want to add something else to it, you've got a turntable, you've got a CD player, you may have ventured back into cassettes, I don't know. But it's still worth putting the receiver there. Obviously, it's going to take up a bit more room. What's the advantages of DAB against this? Well, the DAB, obviously, you're going to get, as long as you've got a good aerial, still need a reasonable aerial, you're going to get a signal that's solid. You're not going to get any crackling, hissing or anything like that. If you've got a bad signal, it just disappears, so to speak. So, it makes that juttery sound. But, you're going to get a nice strong reception, no hissing in the background. So, that's the positive for DAB. Got a few negatives, though, because it depends what the station's actually transmitting, the bit rate. Now, this can vary a lot. It can be a really high bit rate, which means, hard to explain really, but, they're transferring an analog signal, or if it's playing a record, obviously the digital one's going to be digital anyway with a CD, but they're transferring that to ones and zeros. In the waveform, they got to kind of like pick where the ones and zeros are. A bit complicated. Try and keep it simple as possible. Pick the ones and zeros. It's a bit like your picture on the TV, where you got an HD signal. That's still digital, ones and zeros, and you've got a standard definition. You can see, it looks pixelated. You can see where it's pixelated, and that's pretty much how the sound is. It's going to pixelate the sound. So, maybe where you've got a nice symbol, really nice symbol, it's going to sound pixelated. It's going to be juddery. That kind of got a judder to it. You know what I mean? That kind of sound to it, so to speak. Depending on the bit rate. Obviously, the higher the bit rate, the better. But I noticed, I really have, a lot of them are really using low bit rates. So the signal is quite compressed and not great. The sound isn't great on some of them. Some of them it's fine, but some of them it isn't that great. With the analog signal, you're going to get that, like I say, that hissing sound in the background. You really need, you don't want a piece of wire like I've got here. That's just to show you this. It's on the stereo light, basically. You need a proper dipole. Like when I say a dipole, it's I've moved my other one, but it's still a piece of wire, but it's put up nice and neat in its own little plastic casing. One goes one way, one goes the other, and you put it up as high as possible. Then also, while you've got it up as high as possible, you've got to try and get the angle for the best possible signal. Looking at your old signal meter here, and you really want this to hit the 4.5 bracket. If it's 4 like it is now, it's okay, but you're going to hear a bit more hiss. You can get rid of the hiss by pressing the stereo button and turning the stereo off. That's where it's picking up the hiss from, the stereo, and then bring it back in. If you've still got the hiss, you're going to have to move that aerial around. And when you see the manual for these, they recommend a loft aerial, an aerial out in the street, but you don't have to go that mad. Like I say, as long as you don't mind putting up. And when I say hiss, the hiss is in between tracks, or when maybe someone's announcing something softly, like they're talking softly, no music in the background, you're going to hear in the back of that, and maybe a few crackles and whatever. Especially if you've got it near electrical equipment and all that as well, like it's radiating different frequencies out. So just something to bear in mind, but you're getting a nice analog signal out of one of these. They do sound really nice. I think they sound really nice. Okay, that's it. So yeah, good aerial and everything else. A little bit about these. Now you're going to see some of these where they may need bulbs replacing. If you buy, no, I'm talking about like these old ones now. If you may need bulbs replacing, and most of these are really simple. It's just a matter of just undoing a couple of screws and the back comes off. And you can buy the bulbs for about £10 a set, somewhere around there. They usually take about 4, maybe 5. On this one, I think it's about 6, because you've got one for each meter as well. I'd recommend, these look nice, these LED ones. This is a blue LED. The only trouble with these LED ones, they're actually brighter than the bulb was originally put in the machine. The bulb in the machine was like a duller. It's incandescent and it's a duller kind of like brightness. Well, this is more brighter. And what people do, who put these in, maybe yourself if you're thinking of putting them in, I'll try and explain this as possible, the best as I can if I use my phone maybe. And if we have this as the front of the bulb, and you'll see the little LEDs, like little diamonds so to speak on the front, inside the round bulb, it'd be inside a round tube. And you'll see them facing towards you. And your tendency is to put these in, and you want the light to go this way along the band. So your tendency would be to put that light and turn it round and shine it along that band. That's not the way to do it, honestly. If you do that, you're going to have a really bright display, a bit overpowering, I think. You're going to pick up every single fingerprint, inside and outside that perspex at the front. Every spot of dust you can imagine. Now these you can undo and try and get that dust out, but you need a dust-proof room, that's all. It's unbelievably hard, and I have tried it quite a few times with a number of things. My wife's bit, we've had rows and everything of it, trust me. It is so hard to get that absolutely dust free. It really is once you've undone it. it's dust all around the room, and it comes bombing back to this display. So now with these dull bulbs, like I say, these incandescent ones, they cover that up a little bit, you know what I mean? It's covered up a little bit. It looks a little bit nicer, I think, you know what I mean? It's more that old-fashioned type of look. So, but if you do put the LED ones in, don't face them that way. Face them this way. Face them out. They may sound crazy, but it's this here, and it automatically, there's nowhere else for the light to go. It comes down this perspex. These lights here are facing you. They're not like that. They're all facing forward. And I think you can see that. I mean, I've got quite a few lights pointed at me at the moment. You can see that pretty easy, I would have thought. And in the dark, it looks nice. Just a little bit overpowering still, but nowhere near as overpowering if you had the LEDs actually facing each other, like, you know what I mean? So just something to bear in mind there if you're going to put some LEDs in there. Going back to these, if you're buying a tuner and that, you may think, oh, what's the quality like, you know what I mean? Where is it in the range and all that? And I've been having a look, and this Marantz particularly, pardon me here also, this Marantz particularly, this 2050, this is used in different receivers of there. And you'll find these companies, even though this is a separate, they will use them boards in their receivers as well. Because I mean, they ain't going to make a board just for this. It's going to be pretty versatile. So this board here, for instance, is in the 220 receiver. It's in the 250 receiver here. It's in the 1550, sorry, the 220 tuner, 250 tuner. It's also in the 1550 receiver and the 1530 receiver. And you'll find it also, I've noticed that I've got a Super Scope 1220, and the board in there is out of other receivers by Marantz, and it's the same tuner board in the Super Scope 1220 that's in the Marantz 2215, I believe, or 2216. Yeah, they use the same board. So it's a P100 board used in this particular unit. But there is a couple of variations on the P101 board as well, so just bear that in mind. But if you go on a HiFi engine, download the manual, you get an idea what boards are used where. It may give you a bit more of an indication if you're looking at like Pioneer or Sansui or something like other makes, what board's been used where, what receivers they put it in. It may give you a more of a general where that board fits in, and is it bottom of the range, middle of the range, you know what I mean, that kind of thing. Okay, yeah, just bear that in mind. You also amplifiers, if you're buying amplifiers, I've seen it a few times where I don't know, I'll just pick an amplifier off the top of my head, Marantz 1050. I've not researched this one. You may find that amp is actually, that board is actually using a receiver of there, and you go to buy the amp, it's £200, and you go and buy the receiver, it's 150, but you're getting the same amp in there. Now, what is the downfall of having a receiver versus a tuner and an amplifier? Well, most people seem to say that two items coming off of one transformer, like so, and they're right next to each other inside the unit, so you're going to get a little bit of like crosstalk, like a little bit of interference with each other, and they're drawing the power from the same transformer. So theoretically, you could have your amplifier like blaring, and it's like producing a big bass or something, so it's drawing a lot of current from the transformer to do that, and the capacitors, and this will slightly degenerate the signal going to the just a little bit less power be going to the receiver, the tuner part, the receiver part of the unit, and vice versa, so to speak, ish. But it's mainly that way round. Yeah, but usually they put the right transformer. They don't just stick any transformer. They would put a transformer in there that's going to cope with that. And like I say, being in the same unit, a little bit of interference, which I can agree with that. Maybe a little bit of interference, but then you've got the added benefit that there's no wires coming out to connect it. The actual link between the the tuner part and the actual amplifier is going to be very, very short wire compared with you like dragging a wire out and linking it up at the back. So it's a little bit of give and take there maybe, but also it looks nice. You've got two units rather than one. Everything ain't always, it's more space in the amplifier. They will try to cram everything in there, which I've seen in a few receivers that crammed all in one, so many bits near each other where they can spread them out a little bit more as well. Hopefully make the quality just a little tad better. Like, it's not going to be unbelievably better, but it's going to be maybe just a tad better. But anyway, that's my thoughts on I think I've pretty much covered what I wanted to say, and I can finally wrap this up as well as my other one and put it away. So yeah, just a quick video there, another one for the channel. I hope you're enjoying the few bits and pieces I've been putting up, and like I say, there's plenty more to come. Until next time, I'll say thanks for watching, and I'll see you all soon.